Hello everyone, I'm Anas Al-Ubaidi, and the topic or the title for this lecture or session is about the role of regulatory authorities in clinical trials, ICH, GCP. So ICH short for International Council for Harmonization, GCP, Good Clinical Practice. And it is part of the chapter that is about the introduction to clinical research and regulatory frameworks. And this lecture or session, of course, is part of the Advanced ICH Good Clinical Practice Certification Course Program by CCRPS. Introduction. Regulatory authorities are crucial for ensuring the safety, efficacy, and ethical standards of clinical trials. Their role is essential in protecting the rights, safety, and well-being of trial participants. These authorities oversee the approval of clinical trials and ensure that they comply with the required scientific, legal, and ethical standards. The key functions of the regulatory authorities: approval of clinical trials. Before a clinical trial begins, regulatory bodies must approve the protocol, investigational products, or IPs for short, and trial sites. This ensures that the study follows all regulatory standards. Safety oversight: they monitor the safety of participants by requiring reporting of adverse events and serious adverse events. Quality assurance: regulatory authorities ensure that trials are conducted according to the standards set out by Good Clinical Practice, GCP, providing guidance on trial management, documentation, and monitoring. So when we talk here about the regulatory authorities, of course, the most familiar example, common example, is FDA in USA. But any uh, geographical area or country, there will be similar to FDA, regulatory authority similar to FDA to do the same role. As for instance, in Australia, we have TGA. In European Union, we have EMA. In UK, United Kingdom, we have MHRA, MHRA, and so forth. So let's start with the key points here. Key regulatory authorities: we have US Food and Drug Administration, FDA, responsible for ensuring that clinical trials in the US are conducted according to the GCP standards, reviews of new drug applications, NDAs, and investigational new drug IND applications. European Medicines Agency, EMA, and European Union ensures that clinical trials in the EU and European Union follow GCP guidelines and ethical standards, approves marketing authorizations for medicinal products in the European Union. Health Canada, so what's equivalent to EMA and FDA in Canada, it's called Health Canada, oversees clinical trials and drug approval processes in Canada, ensuring that trials comply with ICH GCP standards. We have the PMDA, the Japanese Pharmaceuticals and Medical Devices Agency. So the Japanese Pharmaceuticals and Medical Devices Agency, PMDA, regulates clinical trials in Japan and ensures compliance with the GCP standards. Others, again, we have in Australia, TGA, in UK, United Kingdom, MHRA, MHRA, and so forth. So World Health Organization, WHO, provides guidelines and standards for clinical trials, particularly in developing countries, to ensure the integrity and safety of global trials. Principles of regulatory oversight in clinical trials: ethical oversight, informed consent. So regulatory authorities ensure that informed consent is obtained from every clinical trial participant, meaning they understand the study's risks and benefits. Independent ethical review: the ethics committee, usually separate from the regulatory body, ensures that participants' rights and well-being are protected. So independent ethical review, like institutional review boards, IRBs, or Institutional Review Board, IRB, which is independent ethical review. Scientific oversight, approval of study protocols. Regulatory authorities assess the study design to ensure it is scientifically sound and safe for participants. Review of investigator qualifications. Investigators or the principal investigators, the PIs, must meet specific training and qualification requirements to ensure they can conduct the trial safely and competently. Safety oversight, adverse event reporting. Regulatory bodies require immediate reporting of serious adverse events, SAEs, during the trial, ensuring that any risks to participants are promptly addressed. Periodic monitoring, inspections, and audits ensure that clinical trials are conducted according to the approved protocol and regulatory requirements. How regulatory authorities ensure compliance? Well, regulatory authorities implement a combination of pre-study, in-study, and post-study actions to ensure compliance with GCP good clinical practice. So, pre-study actions, protocol submission and review. The trial sponsor submits the clinical trial protocol to the regulatory authority for approval prior to the trial begins. The regulatory body reviews the protocol to ensure scientific and ethical integrity. In-study actions, monitoring and audits. Regulatory bodies conduct periodic inspections and audits to ensure compliance with the GCP. These inspections may include reviewing clinical data, interviewing investigators, and inspecting facilities. Post-study actions, final review and reporting. After the trial is completed, regulatory bodies review the final clinical trial report, evaluating whether the trial met the scientific objectives and complied with all regulatory requirements. Real-world example, how regulatory authorities affect clinical trials. Imagine a clinical trial for a new cancer drug. Here's how different regulatory authorities might interact with the trial. FDA USA approved the investigational new drug, IND, application and ensures that the trial is conducted following GCP guidelines, monitors for any serious adverse events during the trial, such as unexpected side effects. EMA in Europe reviews the protocol to ensure it meets European standards and monitors the safety and efficacy of the drug throughout the trial. Ensures that adverse events are reported promptly by the investigator. Health Canada provides approval for clinical trials in Canada, ensures the study that the study complies with national regulations and international GCP standards. So regulatory authorities are instrumental in ensuring that clinical trials are conducted within the highest level of safety, ethics, and scientific integrity. They provide oversight at every stage of the clinical trial process, from initial protocol approval to post-study evaluation, by adhering to guidelines set forth by regulatory bodies. Sponsors and investigators can conduct clinical trials that protect participants and yield reliable, scientifically sound results. Next, we have the summary tables. Here we have a table on concept, description, example. Examples as concept, and for each concept application example. And then we have the MCQs, or the multiple choice questions, in order to review what we have covered through this lecture. Question 1, which of the following is the primary responsibility of a regulatory authority in clinical trials? B would be the answer: approve clinical trial protocols and monitor trial safety, as regulatory authorities are responsible for reviewing and approving trial protocols and monitoring the safety of participants. Question 2, what is a primary responsibility of an ethics committee, like IRB, in the clinical trial process? Would be C, ensure informed consent is obtained from all trial participants, as the ethics committee ensures that participants are fully informed about the trial and give a consent voluntarily. Question 3, which regulatory authority is responsible for overseeing clinical trials in the European Union? Would be B, EMA, as FDA in USA, EMA in European Union, which is the answer. Health Canada, PMDA in Japan. So the European Medicines Agency, EMA, oversees clinical trials in the European Union. Question 4, what does GCP, good clinical practice, stand for? And why is it important in clinical trials? So, answer would be B, good clinical practice. It ensures safety, ethics, and scientific integrity in trials, as GCP is a set of standards ensuring that clinical trials are conducted ethically and scientifically. Question 5. What is an investigational new drug IND application? So it is B, a request for approval to begin to start clinical trials with a new drug. So the IND application is submitted to regulatory authorities to request approval to start clinical trials on a new drug. And here we come to the end of this lecture. Thank you very much, and goodbye.